Well, you could have almost like, what we should do is just record a bunch of me going like, yeah, cool. And then just like intersperse that throughout this so I can just go.
I know, right?
Welcome to Namely 90s. Wow. The podcast that takes you back to the time before smartphones, Google, and Y2K. Join your hosts as they relive the pop culture that shaped a generation and the parts that many people wish they could forget. Listen in to the conversation about how the decade defined those who spent their childhood there and how it shaped them as adults. So, turn down the grunge and dial up the internet. Let's get started. It's time for Namely 90s.
That's right. You're listening to Namely 90s. My name's Andrew, and over there is Brandon.
That's me.
You can find us online at namely90s.com or on Instagram at namely90s with a 90s. You can also find this show on YouTube every Monday at youtube.com/@namely90s. And finally, if you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/namely90s and get signed up for one of our support levels. That was tight. I usually struggle anymore. Like I used to be really good at that, and then I started having trouble when we switched to X, which no one uses. And now I can do it.
We just got a Bluesky.
All right. On to greener pastures, I guess.
.bsky. Whatever the server thing is.
That didn't work.
That's helpful. What?
Bsky.
Well, I don't know what the last part is. What is the Bsky?
Bsky. Oh yeah. .app.
.app. Okay. So it would be namely90s.bsky.app.
Nope. With a 90s.
Namely 90s Bluesky. Yeah, I'm still getting used to it. Maybe I can. Yeah, this is great podcasting, by the way.
July 2023. Bluesky's moderation woes continue as
Namely 90s
they allow usernames with racial slurs.
Namely 90s with 90s.bsky.social. Well, I mean, you won't be able to.
.com. Oh yeah, I can't get to it because I don't have it.
Yeah, I'll send you a code when I get one.
Okay, well, great. That means something.
Yeah, if you're on Bluesky, hit us up because now I can actually say F Twitter, which I have multiple times from two different Bluesky accounts.
F Twitter by just making a new one.
Yes,
that's not any different.
By making the same old one from the original owner, creator of Twitter. Yeah, but make it harder to access and be a part of.
Yeah. We also find us in Wildebeest. Wait, that's not a thing.
I don't think we have a Mastodon yet. Because that was too confusing. Like just the namely90s.bsky.social, that's hard enough to remember. The Mastodon like screen names or whatever, those are like 524.8774.7-x hex code.
Is it just an IP address?
I think so. Like, and I don't know. We ain't be hosting servers here.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm feeling much better.
He said as he coughs.
Don't mind me. I do still have that like lingering cough, but I don't feel feverish and shaky today like our last recording.
Yeah. So feverish and shaky you thought it was this week instead of last
Yes,
week.
I did.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Had a blast. We did a I don't think I want to spoil it, but we did a recording with a fellow podcaster about a well-known 90s movie. That was fun.
Oh yeah. We should promo that since.
Well, I don't know if he's pre-promoting it or it's like a secret what we're talking about.
Well, let's not say the movie, but let's at least say that we were on Raph Stith, who was on our South Park episode of the Christmas specials and possibly be coming back for the Christmas specials this year, which coming up in a month or so. He is on a Is it an offshoot? I don't know the exact terminology, but it's part of the Screen Age Wasteland network and it's called The Canon, which I believe is like a spinoff of their written canon list.
I thought it was a Civil War podcast. So stupid.
Where they talk about movies that are a part of the canon, which is like everything that Andrew hates. Popular movies that are popular because they're good and people recommend them all the time.
Yeah, exactly that.
We had Andrew watch one of the all-time classics. I think it's on the 100 best movie list from multiple sources. And we won't tell you what it is, but it will be out, I believe, the week of Thanksgiving, if not the week this podcast comes out, or this episode comes out. So check out The Canon from Screen Age Wasteland. And had I prepped further for that, I would have been able to give you a more detailed...
What is this prepping you speak of?
Yeah. Oops. You even kind of hinted at it before we started, and I was like, oh yeah, that was, I'm going to make fun of you because you thought we didn't, we already recorded this week. So yes, that's on me. But yeah, check us out. We'll surely tell you when the episode drops on socials. So that's why you should follow us on social media at 90s with a 90s on most platforms.
Definitely a blast. Always fun to do guest spots. I was struggling with internet issues, which didn't actually get better when I solved the problem on my end. So that's fun.
I think Raph also had some internet issues on his end, or it was my end. But yeah, classic us.
Turns out you can't be like 17 and a half miles from the Wi-Fi router.
Oh yeah, you actually moved to get closer to your router, so that was
yeah.
Nice.
I did a speed test. I cut everything off, did a speed test. I was at 10 megabit per second. And then I went to the kitchen where I did the recording at and did a speed test, and it was 450. I was like,
wow.
Oh, well, but there were like several walls that I had to go through. Like, it doesn't go through walls very well. So anyway, fixed.
Yeah, which is why my internet's so terrible most of the time, because the router's on the other side of this wall. Yeah. And we still haven't filled 10 minutes.
What have you been up to?
I was in another one of my musical improv ensembles performances. It was the last of the year. We're actually called the Loose Cannons, which is canon as in
two ends.
No, one. 2N is shooting, right?
Yeah.
Canon as in one. So like Pock Bell's Canyon. Canon. Got it. It's clever, I guess.
So clever you have to explain it. That's what you know. That's when it's clever.
To be fair, if you're a musical and or drama nerd, you tend to have to explain all of your references to everyone.
That's true.
All the time, even within your own thing. Like I dressed up as Captain Hammer for our Halloween performance, and the only people that got it was people our age.
By the way, which Marvel movie is it that's doing terribly? Aren't there two right now?
Well, the Marvels just came out, and I saw it already, and it was pretty good. But I think it was at 53 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Are there two though, or is that the one with Captain Marvel in it?
That's the one with Captain Marvel in it, along with Ms. Marvel and Photon.
I think like my algorithm thinks that I like to interact with things about how bad the Marvel things are.
Yeah.
So it's always like, this is a flop. No one wants to watch it. I'm like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that no one wants to watch it. According to this one random article that probably isn't actually accurate.
Well, the Facebook algorithm is designed to make you enraged, so you want to comment more, is what I've heard.
Oh, see, my immediate comment in my mind was like the bully from The Simpsons. Is it Nelson?
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's probably not doing great because they didn't get to promote it until the strike finally ended on Wednesday. But yeah, I mean, it was better than Ant-Man, which kind of flopped this year. I don't remember what the last movie must have been Ant-Man. I thought The Marvels was good.
Okay.
And the other thing that just ended is Loki. That was fantastic. Season 2 of Loki. Not as good as season 1, but it does it ties everything up, and it concludes in a satisfying manner, and not the way that you think it's going to end. So that's impressive. Whereas the Marvels is kind of cookie cutter, but it's also the chemistry between all of the actors, spot on, fantastic. I love Brie Larson. The new girl that's playing Ms. Marvel, her name's Iman Vellani, and she grew up watching the Marvel movies as like a kid, and like reading Ms. Marvel as a comic book, and she now gets to write like an arc for the Ms. Marvel comics, which is kind of cool. But yeah, there's so much fun in that movie. Whereas I feel like Ant-Man was just like, yeah.
I feel like the problem is, okay, so the diehard fans are hard to please.
Right.
So there's a lot of like naysaying in that circle, but they'll still see it.
Yep.
And then the people who are a little bit more casual, I truly think are getting a bit fatigued of it.
Oh, totally.
So, I kind of feel like the day of those being like huge blockbusters may be gone unless they, take a pause and kind of
which they kind of have to do now because of the strike and the new heads of Disney, and
at least it wasn't Blue Beetle. Oh boy.
Well, here's the thing. I think superhero fatigue, I don't think is 100% Marvel's fault. I think it's DC's fault for trying to do all the crap that they did to compete with Marvel up until this point. And
there's just a lot to keep up with. Like, the problem is, for someone like me, like, yes, I don't like the genre, but if I decided one day, like, I'm going to like this genre, I'd have a lot of friggin' work to do. So it'd be hard. Like, I feel like it is hard to step into.
See, and that's the thing. You don't have to watch everything, but if you feel obligated to watch everything, which is fair. But like the Marvels, you could just hop in. This is the first movie I've ever seen that has a previously on segment in the beginning of the movie.
See, that I can get on board with.
Right? I was just like, because they did such a great job introducing the two new girls that were introduced in like WandaVision and Ms. Marvel on Disney Plus. But then for like last time on Captain Marvel, it was just like they cut together the scenes from the previous movie. I'm just like, why does my movie need a previously on segment? And like they had an in movie reason for it, but I was just like, what is this, Doctor Who?
Or is it Doctor When, Where, What, and Why?
You were going to save that joke for later.
My favorite. No, I had to get it out early because I was sitting over here like practicing saying it without the Who because it's very difficult.
Oh, that's fair.
Yes.
And for those of you that didn't read the title of this episode or see our little card, we're doing a deep dive, and I'm doing the deep dive this week. So that means we're going to be talking about Doctor Who because it's the Diamond Jubilee of Doctor Who. Does Jubilee apply to shows, or is it just an anniversary?
I don't know. I feel like this is your revenge for me taking the Blink 182 deep dive.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Oh boy.
Because Andrew's just going to sit there and go, oh, cool.
Yeah, it's actually just a track. I'm just going to like put a video of myself on loop in front of the camera on my phone and put a little tape recorder, like a talk boy, just saying every once in a while, cool. Yeah.
Yes. And I definitely haven't done that in previous episodes on our YouTube of Andrew because he's because we're interviewing someone and he's just looking off screen at his phone on camera.
I have done that a few times.
A few. But Doctor Who,
I'm a busy person. Okay,
you are. You have things to get back to, and those specials go long. So pull out your phone and get ready to listen to the deep dive. What was I going to call this?
Do it up here.
Doctor Who in the 90s. No, the history of Doctor Who in the 90s.
Doctor When? The 90s.
I had a clever title. It's probably in the title.
He is a physician, right?
I would say yes, but at one point in one of those series, he says, "I'm not that kind of doctor." When someone says, "You have a medical degree,"
and so basically, it's a ripoff of Sliders, right?
Yes, this is a ripoff of Sliders. The British are known for taking our shows and turning it into their own television.
Exactly,
like The Office.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
Yeah,
obviously.
What else? In-Betweeners. This is just pissing off our UK audience. Okay.
Yeah.
Doctor Who is a British science fiction television series broadcast by the BBC since 1963. The series depicts the adventures of a Time Lord from Gallifrey called the Doctor, an extraterrestrial being who appears to be human, but he has a binary cardiovascular system. So
is that how they explain the fact that he randomly will become a different person after like 7 or 8 years?
The Time Lord thing, yes. I will get to that in a second. The Doctor explores the universe in a time-traveling spaceship called the TARDIS, which stands for Time and Relative Dimensions in Space. The exterior of the TARDIS appears to be a blue British police box, which was a common sight in Britain in 1963 when the series first aired. That's how you would call the police if you needed help out on the street. With various companions, the Doctor combats foes, works to save civilizations, and helps people in need. And then beginning with William Hartnell, 13 actors have headlined the series as the Doctor. The transition from one actor to another, which you were referring to, is written into the plot of the series as a concept called regeneration, where he regenerates into a new incarnation. A Time Lord can transform themselves into a new body when the current one is too badly harmed to heal normally.
I figured. I like how back in like the 1960s, it was still original to be like a person who goes to a new place every week and saves somebody or does something good.
Oh yeah.
But every show follows that arc.
That was pre-Star Trek too.
Yeah, very common theme for a television show, but obviously this was the 60s, so it's fine.
And on a BBC budget. So each actor's portrayal is distinct, but they all represent stages in the life of the same character, and together they form a single lifetime with a single narrative. And sometimes they occasionally run into each other because it's also time travel. It's a series of significant pop culture in Britain and has gained a cult following elsewhere. It's influenced generations of British television professionals, many who have grown up with watching the series. Fans of the series are referred to as Whovians. And it is listed in the Guinness World Records as the longest running science fiction television series in the world, as well as the most successful science fiction series of all time, based on its overall broadcast ratings, DVD and book sales, and iTunes traffic. The series originally ran from 1963 to 1989, with the first Doctor, William Hartnell, playing it until 66. Second Doctor, Patrick Troughton. These are the actors who played it until 69. Third Doctor, John Pertwee, from 70 to 74. Fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, 74 to 81. Fifth Doctor, Peter Davidson, who you know as Henry Sharp in Law and Order UK. Because I think you watched that once.
I did. I enjoyed that show, actually.
And that was in 1982 to 84. The Sixth Doctor, Colin Baker, from 84 to 86, who didn't get his own regeneration because it ended with Sylvester McCoy playing the Seventh Doctor, who wore a wig to be Colin Baker's. It's hilarious. The TARDIS gets hit by opening a new season, the TARDIS gets hit by some energy field, and then you just see him pass out on the floor with this cheap wig on, and then he starts regenerating. And the final episode in 1989 is Survival. And people do know Sylvester McCoy as Radagast the Brown in the Hobbit series. So by the 90s, by the time I was born.
So by 1 year from it ending.
Yes. So it ended, but Nelvana is some sort of animation house. a Canadian animation house, and they wanted to the BBC wanted them to make a cartoon series that continued the Doctor Who story, just as a viable option, which would incorporate various elements of previous Doctors. And basically they were like, let's make a cartoon. Do you know how 90s cartoons were, like late 80s, early 90s cartoons, where it was like Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century, and like they would just do like weird adaptations. Ghostbusters had an animated series or two. Men in Black, it's like, let's follow character adjacent things and from movies or TV shows, live action, and
also make it more accessible to kids, or not in this case.
So the cartoon, they wanted, it was not meant to be more oriented towards a younger audience than the live action series, but I mean the original Doctor Who was technically supposed to be a kids show about, or like a family kids show that was educational, because they were time traveling to different time periods and such.
Okay.
But also had outer space, and yeah, it kind of got away from that premise. But here they wanted to stick kind of general family, instead of just specifically for kids. There's some concept art that was prepared for several different Doctors, based off of actors such as Peter O'Toole, Jeff Goldblum, and Christopher Lloyd. They were going to make new versions of popular enemies such as the Daleks and the Cybermen, and the Master was going to be a half man, half robot with a cybernetic bird accessory and face modeled after Sean Connery.
Cybernetic bird accessory?
Right. It sounded like this was going to be terrible. I did actually just watch like a YouTube documentary on this, and the sketches that they showed were pretty out there, but one did actually look like a mix of Jeff Goldblum and Peter O'Toole.
Weird.
So it would have been the biggest show to date for the Canadian animation house Nelvana, but the BBC got cold feet and were like, yeah, let's not do that. And a British animation studio underbid them. So the project didn't proceed further, and no pilot was produced, and no animated Doctor Who series exists. So
maybe in a different timeline or universe.
Exactly. In this vast Marvel multiverse. Sorry. Moving forward, in 1993, Dimensions in Time was the 30th anniversary of Doctor Who, which is an episode developed for the charity special. I think it was a charity special. I think it was for Children in Need. The British television has like Red Nose Day, Children in Need, different various aids. This one was a crossover between Doctor Who and the soap opera EastEnders. It was broadcast in two parts on the 26th and 27th of November in 1993. And basically it featured all of the surviving actors to have played the Doctor, which was 3 through 7. And they met, as well as many of the characters' companions, including Ace, K9, Mel Bush, Perry Brown, Nyssa, Romana, Leela, Sarah Jane Smith, Captain Mike Yates, Liz Shaw, Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, Victoria Waterfield, and the original companion, his granddaughter, Susan Foreman, and also evil villain the Ronnie was the plot device. She's the one that hit the TARDIS with that giant pink glow to make Sylvester McCoy wear a wig and regenerate into himself.
The first 6 names just sound like hip hop artists to me. I don't know why.
So that I think it's listed in like reverse order of when they appeared. So this was like late 80s, mid 80s, late 70s, early 70s, and then like Victoria Waterfield was a kind of on the nose. I think she was from Victorian times. Susan Foreman was his granddaughter, but also from 1963. Sarah Jane Smith was from the late 70s mid 70s. Mike Yates was a cool space guy. Anyway, Nissa Romana was a Time Lord. Leela was from she was a cave person or something, and Nissa was also an alien. Anyway, the special was produced for Children in Need following the cancellation of Doctor Who, and it was the only broadcast of the 30th anniversary for Doctor Who. But it's also, I don't think it's canon because there's EastEnders in it. So moving forward, there was a movie. They were like, let's make a movie that led to the 1996 Doctor Who film. Let's see. Universal Television had Amblin Entertainment produce a writer's Bible for Doctor Who. And for a new series of Doctor Who, and they were trying to establish a new continuity rather than follow the classic series. Although it reused many elements from the classic series, it was going to feature a half-human Doctor seeking his father Ulysses through various time periods, including spots in Gallifrey and England during the Blitz, ancient Egypt, and where the Daleks were created on Skaro. Other proposed episodes included redoing of old episodes, famous episodes, including The Talons of Wen Shang, which is super racist, by the way, Earthshock, The Horror of Fang Rock, The Celestial Toymaker, Tomb of the Cybes, which they were going to call Cybermen Cybes, because the 90s, apparently. Yeah, and The Yeti and The Ark in Space. But fortunately, they scrapped that idea and they created the less than well-received Doctor Who the movie, or Doctor Who the television movie, which is a 1996 television film continuing the British science fiction television series Doctor Who. It was developed as a co-production between Universal Studios and BBC Worldwide. And it premiered on the May 12th, 1996 in Canada first, before it's showing in the United Kingdom, which was 2 days before, and 2 days before the broadcast on Fox in the United States.
Which the broadcast was the highest rated TV movie
on Fox, which, yeah. Let's see. The producer had been trying to launch a new American produced series of Doctor Who for some time, but only Fox Network was interested or at all. It was, and they were only prepared to commit to a single television movie / backdoor pilot. Had it been successful, Fox might have been persuaded to consider a series, but the ratings in America wasn't great, although it did pretty well in the UK. The budget for the movie was $5 million, with half of being spent by Fox. And yeah, $5 million for a TV movie in the 90s seems pretty expensive.
It's steep, yeah.
Yeah. The original plan was for a completely new American version of the Doctor, in the same way Sanford and Son was a unrelated remake of Steptoe and Son, and All in the Family was a remake of Till Death Us Do Part. These are apparently BBC and or British television series that we've never heard of and were adapted into classic American sitcoms. Or do you watch Steptoe and Son?
What?
Exactly. So when the new scriptwriter Matthew Jacobs came on board in 1995, he was persuaded to make a simpler story that was a continuation of the previous series. And no American production had ever attempted this before adapting.
That would be a disaster.
How so?
Because, well, first of all,
it only aired in Britain.
We're not so bright.
Yes.
Second of all, continuing a series that is like a huge backstory and like complicated and like a lot of it's hard to.
It's why you don't want to see the Marvel movie.
And Also, like, it didn't do that great in the US. Like, I feel like they're trying to force it. And sometimes, here's the thing. Sometimes we don't need to do our own version of something. Sometimes the British version is just fine. Let's just leave it at that, you know?
Right.
Let's not ruin it.
Yes. As far as I know, like, other than like airing on PBS, episodes of Doctor Who aired on PBS, but yeah.
Like, but they like Quantum Leap. It's like, yeah, but it's different. And yeah.
They like Quantum Leap. There's this thing called Sliders that's in pre-production. They're going to love it. Yes. So among the actors that were invited to audition for the role of the Doctor, but declined, were Christopher Eccleston and Peter Capaldi, who are later the 9th and 12th Doctor, respectively, in the revived series Doctor Who from 2005. Eccleston turned down the offer to audition because at the time he felt he did not want to be associated with a brand name so early in his career. The man who eventually... Sorry.
He didn't want to be successful so early in his career.
Exactly. And also, yeah, later star in G.I. Joe, the movie.
Wow, how's your career going?
Yeah, as
G.I. Joe.
And Capaldi declined because he felt like he was unlikely to be given the part. And of those actors who auditioned for the role, they also appeared in Doctor Who later on, included Anthony Stewart Head from Buffy, who was in the series 2 episode School Reunion, and then a bunch of people who I have no idea who they are. And then they finally found their 8th Doctor, Paul McGann, who portrays the 8th Doctor in a passionate, enthusiastic, and eccentric manner. His only companion in the television film was Grace Holloway, played by Daphne Ashbrook, a medical doctor whose surgery is partly responsible for triggering his regeneration. And the 8th Doctor initially wore a Wild Bill Hickok costume, which included a battleship gray cravat tie intended for a New Year's Eve costume party, which he stole from one of the lockers at the hospital where he regenerated. And he completed it with a pair of black leather shoes taken from Grace Holloway's ex-boyfriend. So, yes, it gave him an appearance somewhere between, quote, a Victorian dandy and a Wild West gambler.
That's how I dress. Anyway, now let's go to Brandon for the Namely 90s Minute.
Welcome back to Namely 90s Minute. Every week we look back at a culturally relevant show, movie, or piece of pop culture that probably helps stoke the algorithm. This week, in honor of Doctor Who's 60th anniversary, we're looking back at the only canon televised entry to the Doctor Who franchise in the 90s, Doctor Who. Doctor Who, or Doctor Who the Movie, is a 1996 television film continuation of the previously canceled Doctor Who TV series that ran from 1963 to 1989 with the hopes of revitalizing the franchise and adapting it for an American audience. The film stars Radagast from the Hobbit film franchise as the 7th Doctor, Gullick from Alien 3 as the 8th Doctor, Ryan's mom from the OC as the new companion, and Emma Roberts' dad as the Master. The story begins with the 7th Doctor picking up the Master's remains from Skaro, where the Daleks had executed him or turned him into goo or something. So the Goo Master breaks out of his container and causes the Doctor to emergency stop his time travel spaceship, the TARDIS, on New Year's Eve, 1999 in San Francisco. For some reason, he exits the TARDIS and is immediately shot by gang members trying to bully a Chinese-American teenager. The Doctor is taken to a hospital where he's operated on by Grace Holloway, but his dual-heart alien physiology confuses her and he appears to die on the table, causing Grace to resign. In the morgue, the Doctor regenerates into the 8th Doctor and freaks out Mad TV's Will Sasso in the process. He runs into Grace and tries to prove he's the guy she thought she killed on the operating table. Meanwhile, the Goo Master possesses the body of the ambulance driver that took the Doctor to the hospital and convinces the Asian teen to be his minion by saying the Doctor has stolen his body and tempts the teen with becoming his travel companion through space and time. He then gets the teen to enter the TARDIS and open the Eye of Harmony, which will somehow destroy the fabric of reality. The Doctor psychically realizes what is happening and tells Grace the Earth will be destroyed at midnight unless he gets an atomic clock from some nearby institute that's holding a New Year's Eve ball. They get the clock after some adventuring and install it in the Eye of Harmony and shut it. The Master then mind controls Grace and she knocks out the Doctor, who wakes up chained over the Eye of Harmony with the Master trying to steal his remaining regenerations. The doctor breaks the master's mind control over the Asian kid, who refuses to reopen the eye, so the master kills him, then uses Grace to do it. Grace regains control of herself and finishes wiring time circuits or something and frees the doctor, and then she dies too. The master and the doctor fight, and the doctor pushes the master into the Eye of Harmony. The eye closes and reverts time by a few minutes when Grace and the kid were still alive. The doctor tells the kid not to be in San Francisco next New Year's Eve, and then invites Grace to come with him, who declines while kissing him goodbye. And that's Doctor Who, the movie, in a Namely 90s minute. More or less.
And now, back to the show.
Yeah, so the Namely 90s minute kind of just precluded me talking about the plot of the film, but a little bit more in depth for Andrew. Basically, the master gets caught in Skaro and is executed, and for some reason, the doctor's tasked with bringing his body back to Gallifrey, but his body's in an urn and his goo. Wow, I thought I wasn't going to go into this. Basically, this goo master, this is this Namely 90s minute. The master does something to the TARDIS. The TARDIS has to land in 1999 New Year's Eve, San Francisco, which materializes right in front of a teenage Chinese American boy who is in a gang or something and is about to be shot by a rival gang. The doctor walks out of the TARDIS and gets shot by 4 Asian gang members.
I like that. That's the US. Like, the doctor regenerates and then immediately is killed by gang violence.
This is the 7th Doctor, and then he's taken to a hospital for gunshot wounds. Also, the scene is amazing because they're just like loading clips. They have like Tech 9s and they're just loading clips into the TARDIS, and then he walks out and they shoot, like they unload another clip, like 4 people each, and then he just gets shot twice and then hits the ground. And it's like,
I love that's it's such an American thing, isn't it?
Or at least how we're depicted by the British people, that we just all have guns everywhere. Yeah, so in the operating theater, the surgeon like slices, like they keep doing x-rays. And I just watched this last night. They keep doing x-rays and they're like, why is there 2 hearts on this? Because the doctor has 2 hearts. And they're like, oh, it must be a double exposure. They do it like 15 times on his x-rays. And they're like, it must be a double exposure. We're getting a new machine. And his new companion, who's like she's a cardiac surgeon and or cardiac specialist, surgeon, whatever. She's on call with her boyfriend. They're at the opera and she gets beeped. So she's like, sorry, I have to go. And he's just like, he has like this huge eye roll. He's like, oh, not again. Like, your girlfriend gets paid well to be a cardiac surgeon. She's on call.
Like, the reason you can afford to go to the stupid opera is because she's a cardiac surgeon.
Yeah, they're in like box seats and in the front. And I'm just like, yeah. And then the hospital they're at has like an operating theater. So like there's people watching her from above. And they're like, we have the new state-of-the-art surgical cameras, and it gets lost because apparently he has 2 hearts, and that somehow confuses her being a cardiac surgeon.
Isn't that a Phil Collins song?
Behind Blue Eyes.
Let's Google it. Yeah, 2 Hearts is a song by Phil Collins from 1988.
I wonder if he was inspired by Doctor Who. Anyway, Emma Roberts, or Julia Roberts' brother, Eric Roberts, apparently was a prolific actor enough to get a special guest star for this film, a special guest star role, whereas Sylvester McCoy, the previous Doctor, was at the end of the guest star credits. What was my point? Apparently he's Emma Roberts' dad. Who knew? I've seen this master like 5 times, and I'm just like, oh, That's Emma Roberts' dad. Anyway, a lot of complicated lore stuff. There's mind controlling, TARDISing, and whatever. And they mind control and time travel, and there's a Namely 90s minute on that. But I just, yeah, everything else is kind of. Oh, Will Sasso's in this from Mad TV, the guy that does the Steven Seagal.
The sound you just heard was me Googling that person.
SASSO. Yeah. Anyway, a little slow to start. I could see why it didn't capture the American audience. And like you said, you kind of needed to do your homework before watching it, even though it was supposed to be like a new entry point to
like we turned it on, it was like, oh, gun violence, okay, and then we're like, yeah, they lost me after that.
Yeah, why are there two hearts?
Like, why don't you try speaking American? That's what they said.
Well, I've said this before on the podcast. Like the first time I watched Doctor Who, I didn't even know what was going on. Well, multiple first times I watched Doctor Who, but like when I was a kid, my dad must have had it on PBS, and I was like, I see them walk into a police box, and suddenly they're inside this giant like alien spaceship. I'm like, did they just cut to a different scene? I'm confused. Anyway, so yeah, the while it was transmitted on Fox on May 14th here, on the Beeb, 13 days later, it only drew 5.5 million viewers in the US, which people would kill for these days. But yeah, it was far more successful in the UK with 9 million viewers, most likely because there was like 4 channels to watch, and one of the top 10 programs of the week. Critical response, Maureen Patton in the Daily Express said, "At last we have a grown-up high-tech Doctor Who and Paul McGann. Only a low-tech Luddite would miss the endearing amateurism of the old tea time serial format, and the makers would be mad not to pursue the option of a series." Matthew Bond of the Times, in contrast, said, "If the series is to return, it will need stronger scripts than the simplistic offering, which struggled to fill 85 minutes and labored somewhat in its search for wit." Yeah, these are mostly British publications. And yeah, no series was committed. And Fox let the broadcast rights lapse by 1997. And while it failed to spark new television interests, the Eighth Doctor's adventures continued in various licensed spin-off media, including BBC's books, Eighth Doctor adventure novels, audio plays from Big Finish Productions, and the Doctor Who magazine comic strip. These stories span the 9 years between 1996 and the debut of the new television series in 2005. So he's technically the longest-serving Doctor in the Doctor Who magazine comic strip. He's the longest-serving Doctor because of the break.
Right. But he wasn't actively portrayed in
correct
television or movie.
He had one appearance.
Yeah.
Up to the reboot in 2005. In the wake of positive reactions to the revival television series in 2005, several of the Eighth Doctor's Big Finish audio dramas were also broadcast on BBC Radio 7 or BBC 7 Radio in an edited form. And Paul McGann continued to portray the Eighth Doctor in various audio spin-offs, which is why they, I don't know. And then one last thing in the 90s, Doctor Who, we have The Curse of the Fatal Death. It's a Doctor Who special made specifically for Red Nose Day charity telethon in the UK, also non-canon. It was broadcast in 4 parts on BBC One on the 12th of March, 1999, under the title Doctor Who and the Curse of the Fatal Death. It's more of a parody, and it's most notable. It kind of bridges the 1963 series and the 2005 version of the program, because the script was by Stephen Moffat, who was the second showrunner for the reboot in 2005. It was the final performance of the original guy who did the voice of the Daleks all the way back from 1963. Richard E. Grant plays one of the alternate doctors, and he later appears on the actual show as an antagonist in season 7 of The New Who. But yes, it was a parody sketch. It featured multiple new doctors, including Rowan Atkinson, Richard E. Grant, Jim Broadbent, Hugh Grant, and Joanna Lumley as the female 13th Doctor. It's actually kind of funny. He just keeps dying over and over again, like almost immediately, and then regenerating. And then his companion's like, "Oh, I'm attracted to you. Oh, I'm not attracted to you." And then it's like Hugh Grant is like, "Oh, hello." And then,
I'm so charmingly befuddled.
Exactly. And then he gets shot too, and or something, and regenerates as a woman. And she's like, "I don't know how I feel about this," but then they're like lesbians because that's how the 90s worked.
Yeah, true.
In 2005, Doctor Who rebooted. The new series would comprise 13 5-minute long episodes.
45-minute long?
Sorry, 45-minute long episodes.
Wow, short.
Yep. First with the episode Rose, named after the new companion, Rose Tyler, played by Billie Piper. And the new series would have mainly standalone or 2-part episodes, and it became an international success over its first 4 seasons. The new Doctors, the 9th Doctor was Christopher Eccleston, 10th Doctor was David Tennant, 11th Doctor was Matt Smith, 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi, as we mentioned, and the 13th Doctor, which oddly coincides with the parody 13th Doctor, is a woman and played by Jodie Whittaker.
The funny thing is, the only one I know is David Tennant because he was a guest on Top Gear.
Oh, yeah.
Sometime in around 2009 or 10, probably.
So is Christopher Eccleston.
Okay, true. But that's what I remember.
Oh, yeah.
Personally.
Well, his was good, and then people like splice that together with him flying the TARDIS. So it's like it looks like he's flying the TARDIS around the test track. Yeah.
Companions?
I want to say Matt Smith was on it as well before they were unceremoniously booted from the BBC. Yes, companions include Billie Piper's Rose Tyler, Freema Agyeman, who also played CP Alicia Phillips on Law & Order UK. That one's also for you.
Great hats and wigs on that show. Their hat and wig budget must have been through the roof.
Catherine Tate as Donna Noble. Karen Gillan, she's in the new Jumanji movies. Ruby Rose, I think, is her character. And Guardians of the Galaxy.
Catherine Tate of The Office?
Yes, Catherine Tate's on The Office. Yes, forgot about that. Karen Gillan as Amy Pond, Jenna Coleman, who's Queen Victoria on the series Victoria. I like Jenna Coleman as Clara Oswald. Oh, and Alex Kingston, who was Dr. Elizabeth Corday on ER as River
ER
Song,
fame.
Who was the doctor's wife, but also Amy Pond's child. That gets a little timey-wimey. And finally, Paul McGann reprised his role for a webcast minisode for the 50th anniversary special, which preceded the 50th anniversary special. It was called Night of the Doctor. The anniversary special was Day of the Doctor. The episode begins during the Time War between the Daleks and the Time Lords, and he's killed when attempting to save a young woman who rejects being saved by the hands of a Time Lord because she was prejudiced because apparently they were in a war or something. And they both die in the spaceship crash, but they bring back the Sisterhood of Karn, who appeared in some 4th or 5th Doctor serial, and they urge him to bring an end to the war and give him some elixirs to trigger his regeneration, becoming William Hurt, the War Doctor, John Hurt, the War Doctor, who says Doctor no more. And then McGann also appears in The Day of the Doctor, when the 8th Doctor joins all of the other incarnations of the Doctor in saving Gallifrey at the end of the Time War, which was done using archival footage. And then he reprised his role as the 8th Doctor in the final 13th Doctor episode, The Power of the Doctor, as one of the Guardians of the Edge in the afterlife, which was inside her mind. Along with the 1st, 5th, 6th, and 7th Doctor, they help her undo her forced regeneration by the Master. It's one of the better episodes of her tenure. Like, great actor, great doctor, just bad writing for her tenure. And at the end of Power of the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor regenerates back into David Tennant as the new 14th Doctor. Yes, right? Which is, and he's set to star in 3 specials starting November 25th on Disney Plus, not a sponsor, airing weekly until regenerating into the new 15th Doctor, Nukti Gatwa. Yes. So
is this the same series still, or is it technically not?
Same series. Series. This is the rebooted series. So
yeah, the reboot, classic, but this is not another. This is still technically the same one as the reboot. It's not.
Yes, from 2005. Okay. Yeah,
got it.
It's been going, but it also, like, you know how the BBC is. They're like, oh, here we'll have 5 seasons in 1 year, and then wait 7 years for the next season. Yeah,
and each season is 2 episodes.
Exactly. So David Tennant gets 3 more specials after ending. He had 3 seasons and 4 specials. So yeah. Anyway, Nukti Gatwa is the first Black Doctor and 4th Scottish Doctor. And he'll star in this year's Christmas special. And also Neil Patrick Harris is in the Tennant specials, or at least one of them, as the villain, the Celestial Toymaker. And that's the history of Doctor Who in the 90s and all of it.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. And in under 50 minutes.
Yeah, that was good. There's 0 chance I'll be watching this show, just so you know.
It's on Disney Plus. It's David Tennant. He was on top here.
0 chance.
Neil Patrick Harris. Yeah. Like, even for the first, like, they're bringing back Catherine Tate too, and like when she left the show, like, her DNA was mixed with the Time Lord DNA, and so if she ever remembers the Doctor, her brain will explode. But they brought her back twice now.
By the way, people hate on the late seasons of the US version of The Office, and I actually find them quite funny, and I actually like Catherine Tate. Like, her character's kind of annoying, but her delivery is good. No one's worse than Ed Helms. Ugh.
I was gonna say I didn't like Andy in those later seasons.
Like, I don't even dislike Ed Helms that much. I just don't really love Andy's character in the later seasons.
Yeah, Ed Helms is great. But yeah, I don't think. I mean, weird that 2 Daily Show correspondents helmed like The Office.
Ed helmed. Oh. I hate myself.
Not as much as someone that's seen almost every episode of Doctor Who.
Fair. Self-loathing is the word I would use.
Any Doctor Who thoughts before we close out?
I don't
want to make another Dr. Wynn or
no, I already did the Dr. When, why, where, and what joke.
Maybe a Who's on First joke. All right.
I thought it was a Chinese show. It was Dr. H-O-O? Doctor Who? Or H-U?
Dr. Wu.
Okay. Yeah, it's the end.
And that's it for this week's deep dive edition of Namely 90s. Remember, you can find new episodes out every Monday, and join us next week for another variety show episode. Find us on Instagram and YouTube at Namely 90s with 90s, and tell us what you want us to talk about on future deep dive episodes. If you'd like to support the show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Namely90s, also with a 90s. Finally, you can also contact us through our website, namely90s.com. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, TARDIS, Deezer, TuneIn, iHeart, Good Pods, and wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm Brandon, that's Andrew, and we'll catch you next time.
No, I was going to say it's bigger on the inside. That's what she said.